right. Hello and welcome. We are so glad to have you today. I am Dr. Mary Bell Carlson with Financial Behavior Keynote Group, and we are glad to have Dr. Kristy Archuleta here. Kristy is an internationally recognized and award-winning professor in financial planning at the University of Georgia. She's also a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she was an associate professor at Kansas State University. She's a co-founder of the Financial Therapy Association, and she started the Journal of Financial Therapy, which is the nation's first academic program in financial therapy. She has also helped establish Women Managing the Farm and Financial Behavior Keynote Group, and she currently serves on the board of directors for NAPFA Personal Advisors, National Association of Personal Advisors. She's won several awards, and her cutting-edge research is often featured, and she's an expert on podcasts and in major news outlets. Kristy, with that, we're just excited to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. What a great group we have here.
I know. I'm so glad. Well, Kristy, I want to start off by asking you the latest and greatest. What are you working on now? You always have interesting projects happening. So please tell us what's happening in your world.
Sometimes I have too many interesting projects, probably like all of you. So I thought that the end of the semester was here. We finished, UGA is out of school this last week. And I thought, oh, yay, it's summer, but I think I'm just as busy or busier this week than I was even last week. So yeah, so one of the things that I'm really excited about that I'm working on is not actually research, but it's a new program that we're developing at the University of Georgia. So very similar to the program that I helped co-develop several years ago at Kansas State, that certificate in financial therapy. We're going to do something similar. So we already do a track. So this is a little bit confusing, but we already offer a track in our on-campus program where students can kind of specialize in what we call behavioral financial planning and financial therapy. But we're taking that track, a core set of those courses from that track, and we're putting it online and creating a graduate certificate in behavioral financial planning and financial therapy. So it's really exciting. We're going to have courses like it's kind of like an introduction to financial therapy. It's got a fancy name, Survey of Financial Therapy, because that's what the department head said that I should name it. So, I do what the department head says. And money and relationships, there's a behavioral finance course. And one of the things that it's 15 credit hours, financial counseling and communication. And the last course that students will take is a practicum. We call it practicum in financial planning because that's just the course title, but it's going to be a virtual experience where students work in our pro bono clinic through the Aspire clinic. So Aspire is an interdisciplinary clinic that we have here on campus. When COVID happened, we had to start offering services virtually, just like everybody else across the country. And although we've gone back to mostly in person, this is going to allow us to offer more virtual services to people across the state of Georgia and beyond. And so it doesn't really matter if students, are joining us from Nebraska. They can still, see clients that could be living in Georgia, or they might be living in Florida, or they might be living in North Carolina. So it's a really exciting opportunity where people will get to put the skills that they're learning through the graduate certificate into practice. And I think that's has been one of the missing pieces in terms of developing people's behavioral skills. And when I say behavioral skills, I mean, like, let's look at the covert and the overt behaviors, meaning let's look at those outwardly behaviors. Those are the things that we see people do. But then the covert behaviors are those cognitions, those thought patterns, how people think, and then the emotional aspects, how people feel about money, and integrating that along with the relational dynamics and being able to put that into practice. So I'm really excited about that. And it's very exciting. This week, actually today, I've been spending time on our sprint design in one of our classes. And so it's just getting me really excited about this certificate that will be rolled out in spring of 24.
Okay, so let me recap. If I got that correctly, this is open to any professionals anywhere in the world. You
Yeah,
don't have to be
anywhere.
in Georgia. That's
No.
awesome. And where can people go to find out more information about this, Kristy?
That is a very good question. I know that a page just went live this week. If you give me a moment, I will pull it up because I don't have the URL memorized because
That's
it's through
okay.
our Office of Online Learning. But maybe it's something that we can tag to this later, send
Totally.
everyone
We'll
afterwards.
include it in the show notes and make sure that everyone gets that afterwards. So yes, and I will also link, you had mentioned the Aspire Clinic. That is very unique to Georgia. And
Very
I love
unique.
the multiple disciplinary track on that. So I will also include a link to the Aspire Clinic for any of you that are wanting to know more about that. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I would say encourage anybody that's looking to advance. I just had a call earlier this week of someone saying, hey, I don't really want to go on a full master's program, but I would like to increase my financial behavior awareness. And I was like, well, this is definitely a great start. So I will include that and be sending more information out. Now, I want to take you from where you're doing now to what you foresee in the profession. Help us really understand what needs to happen in the profession and what has been happening to lay a solid foundation of where we need to go from here.
Yeah, so when we think about the profession, we can think about multiple professions, right? When we're talking about financial therapy in particular, because it encompasses multiple professions from financial services to mental health. And we all know that there are varying disciplines within each of those areas. So what has happened? So I like to tell this story about 15 years ago, probably. I submitted a paper on couples and money. It was a research paper, and an academic journal said, why are you studying these two concepts together? Why does it matter? I don't get those kinds of reviews anymore. So I think we've come a long ways just from a research standpoint. When I go out and present to, I tend to present more to financial planning audiences. I'm in a financial planning program, so I think that probably makes sense in terms of why I'm presenting more towards financial planning audiences. I don't have people giving me blank stares as much anymore. And people, when I raise my hand, have you heard of these concepts? They're raising their hands. And even 5 years ago, that looked very different. So I think one of the things that has happened is that we're starting to understand that the people aspect matters. The people aspect in terms of what we do, how we do it, how we think, feel, how we interact with others has a huge impact on our work with clients. And so the numbers that show up on, for example, a cash flow statement, a net worth statement, they didn't get there because they just appeared. They didn't get there because people were rationally thinking about what they were doing. They got there because they were driven by their own biases, attitudes, feelings about money that they really hadn't probably ever thought about before. Their own culture, their community, in terms of how that has helped shape how they think and feel, their own family, so that family financial socialization has a huge impact. And then the larger the system in which we live in. So there's a number of factors, and none of us are built exactly the same because there are so many varying factors. And I think we're starting, and I say starting, I think we're just kind of in the beginning aspects of that, starting to recognize that all of these pieces matter and they're all very intertwined. And I think COVID actually helped with that. I think it really catapulted us into the future a little faster than we would have been already, because that's when people started recognizing that these pieces matter for the first time. Our health impacted our financial situation. Our financial situation impacted how we're feeling, how we're doing. Our emotions then, led to how we were making decisions about whether we were going to work, whether we are not going to work, how we were going to spend, or how we were going to save our money, what we were going to do if we were receiving some of those government benefits. And so we know that we started making connections amongst all of those different things, and it really brought these relationships, these dynamics together.
Absolutely. And I think I've seen the same thing in the last even 2 to 3 years, a tremendous shift from conferences being more aware of it, speakers. In fact, that's one of the biggest reasons we started Financial Behavior Keynote, is that we see more of a demand for these topics on financial psychology and financial behavior. Now, I want to dig in a little bit more because there's another part that we are starting to hear more about, and it's always been there, and that is this idea of evidence-based research. I need you to help us explain, why does evidence-based research matters? Why can't it just be my best idea and we move on? What is so important about research?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's what all my students are asking when they're sitting in class with me. I'm like, why does this matter? But it does. So I want to give you a little bit of background. As Mary mentioned, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My master's degree and my PhD are marriage and family therapy, and coupled with financial planning inside of that. But what that means is how I was trained to think via theory. So if you ever work with a therapist, they are utilizing some theoretical perspective in which to understand how they're working with you. And so that's how I was trained, is to have a lens in which we see the world, in which we see how we think clients change, and to see how we are explaining what dynamics are happening with our clients. So there's that aspect. Coupled with that is that then those theoretical lenses actually give way to how we're going to work with those. It gives us specific tools and techniques, AKA interventions in the mental health world, in terms of how we're going to help people make changes to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. And so those approaches are evidence-based approaches. Not all of them are, but a lot of them have a lot of science behind how they work and why they work. And so there's been a ton of research into being able to understand this. And so just like if you're going to a doctor, a physician, to be checked out for whatever it might be, maybe you suspect that you might have cancer, you would like for your doctor to use scientific evidence to support what it is that they're doing, right? So that's kind of the same thing. When clients are working with us, they want us to know what we're doing. Instead of, this is just Kristy's best idea that she had. Is there any science behind why she's doing what she's doing? Is there a reason as to why she's doing what she's doing? And is it supported? Does it work with, does my best idea, if Dr. Carlson is utilizing the same best idea, is she doing it the same way? And can she implement it the same way? Or is it just kind of a me factor? Or if I'm borrowing her best ideas, does it really just work because Dr. Carlson's doing it, or will it work because I'm also doing it? So those evidence-based practices help us be able to apply what we know works across a variety of different professionals. And so in the mental health world, that's normal. Like, you don't really utilize an approach, or at least tell insurance that you're utilizing approach, unless it's an evidence-based approach that's been studied and tested for that specific issue that you're utilizing. Mm-hmm. So when we're working with people, I think that was one of my biggest surprises a long time ago, when I started learning more about the financial planning profession, was that there was really no training even in terms of how we're working with people. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, we're training these students to go work with people, but we're not actually giving them any people helping skills. They got like one class, which was like basic communication 101. And so that was better than nothing, and better than a lot of other programs we're doing, but it still wasn't enough, because it's not enough to just utilize basic communication skills when you're really holding people's behaviors, right? You're really working with the human aspect, because that's what's driving everything you're doing. The technical aspects, the financial aspects are easy to some degree, right? Because we have technology support to help us do those sorts of things. We have specific formulas. If you want to do time value of money to look at what your rate of return is going to be, there is a specific formula to figure that out. Now, how fast they're going to get there because of what they're going to contribute to that account makes a big difference in how that equation is going to work. But what they're contributing is driven by their attitudes, behaviors, biases, beliefs, emotions, relational dynamics, etc. That's the harder part to figure out.
Absolutely. In fact, I think that's one of the best explanations I've ever heard in terms of direct to individual planners and why it really matters to you as a planner or a therapist or a coach, whatever your role may be. I'll even talk about it, maybe the forest from the trees analogy. At a forest level, one of the biggest reasons we need evidence-based research is the fact that not only does it help us create a theoretical model that we can all follow and know that has been tested and tried, but it also allows us to rise together. I always use the analogy rising boats, right, or rising tides, rise all boats. That's the same thing here. You think about any profession that we always like to compare ourselves to. So doctors, lawyers, accountants, what do you think that the basis and the foundation each of those professions is? It's research. And just like you used before, you don't want a surgeon cutting you open unless that in theory and that concept has been tested and tried. And so if we expect that of our doctors, we should also expect that of ourselves as financial experts, and making sure that we too have evidence-based to walk into the room and help our clients with very sensitive matters. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, Mary. So going back, I'm going to go back to your other question earlier about like where we're going, if you don't mind.
You bet.
Because I don't think I really addressed that. But I think what's happening is even CFP board has implemented the learning objectives around psychology of financial planning, which is a huge step. And that kind of happened at the same time, you know, we're coming out of COVID a little bit. So that has helped us move the boat forward. And so we're going to continue to see that. I'd love to tell my doctoral students that the sky is the limit when it comes to what you can study in this area, because really we only have foundational building blocks at this point. So, you know, there's a lot of other disciplines that we like to talk about. Research is like a brick wall. There's a topic, and then we're just putting the next brick in the wall. Well, here you're helping to design the wall. That's really where we are. We have kind of this foundation. We have a lot of foundation that's been built to help make it a strong wall, but that wall hasn't been built. And so there's so much to learn. There's so much to do to be able to support our financial professionals, our mental health professionals, and those who are really kind of in this boat of this financial therapy space as well.
I love it. I love it. Kristy, one of the things that I've been hearing lately too, and this is more direct to the practitioners in the room, but I've heard a lot of practitioners say, okay, one, I'm busy running a practice. I've got a million things that I am doing. And now I'm also expected to learn all these tips and tools from financial therapy and financial behavior and psychology. And they're just tapping out and saying, that's fine for the researchers, or it's fine for others who are interested in it, but it's too much for me. How do I learn a brand new skill set? So do you have any tips for those who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, like also becoming, and I'll use in quotes here, becoming a psychologist, because it does feel overwhelming for many who are just wanting to run their practice?
Yeah. We're expected to wear so many hats and wear them all at the same time. And it can be very overwhelming, especially if you're running your own practice, your own business. You know, how do you have time to add on one more thing? Now I have to have one more skill set that I didn't have to have 15 years ago. I didn't have to have 5 years ago. So how am I going to even just kind of tap into it? I think a great way is the Financial Behavior Keynote Group is offering sessions. There's 2 live sessions that we have coming every month for the rest of the year. And so that's one way to learn more about it. You know, if you want to take a deeper dive, you might not want to take a deeper dive, but this is a good way to start. And there's other programs out there as well, but this is a good place to start. And if you're like, hey, you know what, I really want to know more about that, or I really want to take a much deeper dive, then there's academic programs that are going to take a much deeper dive into these concepts. And so there's a lot of different ways of learning. I know that it can be overwhelming, but it can actually benefit your practice in so many ways. I think one of the things that's really useful about these types of seminars that even Financial Behavior Keynote Group is offering is that not only are they backed by evidence and research that's already out there, but they're also going to be somewhat self-reflective in many cases, and kind of diving into yourself and helping you to understand yourself a little bit better. And so even more clarity around how you work and how you work with clients and how you communicate with clients is going to be super helpful in reducing your own stress and anxiety when working with clients, which has an impact on your clients' stress and anxiety when they're meeting with you. So there's a lot of different benefits to that. The other thing, and this is probably a little bit maybe a little bit out there for some people, but I'm not afraid to say that I think some of this is actually an ethical responsibility that you have for your clients. So taking care of yourself is something that you need to be doing so you can take care of your clients. Being able to work effectively with them is an ethical responsibility, especially if you are a fiduciary. And so holding that space and being able to constantly sharpen your tools through whatever means that you can is really key in actually helping your practice, because you don't want to be left behind. You know, AI is here. It's staying, and it's only getting better and better. And so some of those things can help you be more efficient so you can spend more time on the people aspect of it. There's technology and software already to help you create plans, to make referrals, to do all sorts of things. But those people skills, there's nothing to replace that human to human interaction. And we as people were not designed to live in isolation.
Absolutely. In fact, I was just reflecting back 2 decades ago when I was writing my first financial plan. It was all done in Excel. And I think many of you can remember those days, but that is totally being replaced. And yet the one constant that has not changed is human beings. And that's why we call it personal financial planning or family financial planning, because it's the human element that is so integral to everything. Kristy, I'm going to reiterate, I thought that was great to show the various levels, because we get that question a lot too, like, I'm interested in this, but I'm very overwhelmed. Here at Financial Behavior Keynote, we give you CE sessions. They're hour-long, where you can digest bits and pieces. Even if you take one small thing away from each session and learn how to apply it, you're doing a little better than you were yesterday. That is awesome. If you want to take it to the next level, the certificate that Kristy was talking about, or there's other certificate programs that can take it a step deeper. And then last but not least, the academic programs will take you very deep into some of these. So I think that's a great way to sum it up and say there are tools, there are resources, and there are people here to help you just take one step. Even if you do something small, and it may be as small as, and we're going to use the word listening. Listening, by the way, is not small. That is huge. But if you become just a little bit better of a listener today, you're on the right path. That's going to make more changes down the road. So if you're willing and open to learning, we welcome you here at Financial Behavior Keynote. We hope you join us for future sessions. Like Kristy said, we have awesome sessions coming up. I'm really excited about where we're going with this, and we'll bring you more. And with that, we're going to say goodbye to all of our online friends. We're grateful you could join us.